Good evening and welcome. So, how do you feel after that Chesterfield defeat last night? Do you think we are closer to promotion this season in either our previous two National League campaigns, or do you think we are further away? Statistically, I know Mark likes a stat or two. Our league record is identical after 29 games compared to last year. Won 15, drawn 7, lost 7. Goals scored 16 compared to goals 20, or goal difference, I should say. 52 points we have on both of those seasons. Are we getting closer and better? Or is all this statistical data and analysis little more than a selective and elaborate sham? And isn't it about time we ditched this whole Neil Ardley versus Ian Birchinall debate? What matters, for me at any rate, is Notts County Football Club. What matters is promotion. Anything else, whoever was in charge, will be in charge, I would view as failure. Your thoughts? A word of thanks from my son and my producer, Harry. Thank you to everyone who supported him on his walk to Chesterfield yesterday from Meadow Lane. Not the greatest game, at least he got the weather right. He covered the 28 miles in 8 hours and 15 minutes, which is some going. And thanks to you, we've raised almost £800. Details of how those monies are to be donated to Lifeline to help the club commemorate the memory of Colin Slater. They will be released very soon by the club. So, joining me tonight on the show, our Magpie Circle Pundit of the Year, Mark Stallard, and making his debut, an old school pal of mine from Greenwood Dale and Forestfield Sixth Form College, Trevor West. Trevor, a very good evening to you both.
Evening, Paul.
Yeah.
Evening, Paul. Evening, Stell.
Evening. Yeah, good to see you, Trevor.
Right.
Likewise.
Let me start with Stell as the expert and the pundit, because obviously those of you who don't go to the game have heard a lot of his views already. I seldom hear them, I'm afraid. But before we go to Stell, Trevor, debutant, go back to secondary school together in Snenton. You were there. You don't miss many, which is why we invited you on. Give me your thoughts on last night.
Well, first half I thought was fairly even. Don't really think either side created too much. But obviously, another great goal from Eli. He doesn't score tap-ins generally. It tends to be a wonder goal that he scores. But second half, and I've seen this a few times, actually, I think this season, when teams get at us, we seem to capitulate. And I think that's what happened, particularly the first 15 minutes of the second half last night. I think when the goal came, it had been on the cards for the first 15 minutes. And the goal itself, it looked to me that they were actually, the half a dozen Chesterfield players queuing up to take a shot. And and I think, teams that seem to be getting at us and getting in our face a little bit, we struggle with. And I think the disappointing thing was I actually thought prior to the game, Chesterfield were there for the taking. So after everything that's happened with James Rowe being sacked and Shamanga being injured and everything, and they've had one or two results that have not quite gone their way. I think they'd only won 1 in 5 prior to last night. I thought they were there for the taking. And for whatever reason, when we scored, I thought that might, that might actually put them on the back foot. But, they battered us second half, really, especially that first 15 minutes or so. So, really, really disappointed with the way that turned out last night.
From the commentary box, Stell, what was your take?
Yeah, pretty much agree with everything Trevor's just said there. I've got to watch me back in the pundit stakes there. It was. I mean, the goals came for Chesterfield, as Trevor mentioned. Pretty much, you weren't surprised. You were waiting for it to happen. I saw in the first half, and I say about it a lot, and I took that first contact in the penalty areas, from set pieces, from crosses. It's absolutely vital. Both ends of the pitch, and we speak about time and again that matches, a lot of it can be very middle, very average, very, very level, no team really dominating. But matches can be won and lost convincingly in both penalty areas. It's the battle of the penalty areas a lot of the time that decide football matches. And I just saw in the first half, I think there was four definite crosses where there was first contact made by Chesterfield players in an attacking sense. That's too many. It's too many. And in decent areas, not somebody who's winning a 50-50 challenge on the edge of the penalty area and trying to nod it into a crowded penalty. I'm talking balls at the back post, headers where half a yard less pace on the ball. It's a golden opportunity. There were too many headers where they were competing for and winning. And, we know maybe it announces itself more because we know the Achilles heel that Notts have got from crosses, from set pieces, balls into our penalty area. But it just seemed last night that we got away with it first half. We didn't second half. But you can't go around hoping to get away with stuff. Certainly not throughout a football season. So that's it was a poor performance, really. We never really got to grips with the game. Chesterfield, for me, showed a little bit more energy, a little bit more desire and drive to get about the game full stop, and certainly showed Eli's goal aside, which was an absolute peach of a goal, certainly showed more quality in the final third. And to back up exactly what Trevor said, you couldn't have cherry-picked a time to play Chesterfield any better without the leading scorer, with half a dozen players missing, and not just squad players as well, 3 or 4 who would have played, 3 or 4 regular sort of players. That's the time to play them, and they were there for the taking. But we didn't perform. We got beat. We have to go again.
Some early comments coming in. Simon Blair says, I can't now see us achieving automatic promotion. We're high quality in this league, but I think too inconsistent to string an extended run of wins together. Gary S. Set pieces always seem to be our downfall, even though we have taken on a specialist coach for these areas. Simon adds, it also requires others to slip up significantly, so it's looking increasingly unlikely. Let's at best be satisfied with second or third. Paul Hawksworth, the opening observations I made in terms of where are we in terms of getting promotion this season compared to previous seasons, he says further away. Carl Sadler, about the same, playoff bound. PJ Defiance, sadly further away. Well done to Harry. Chris Gosling, the league's got better and we've improved in line with the other teams to keep our playoff place. Chris adds, if we don't finish in top 5, I wouldn't give us a hope in hell of going up via 6th or 7th. No way we can win 3 away games on the bounce. I'm going to pick up with Chris's comment about the league's got better and we've improved in line with the other teams to keep our playoff place. I want to talk a bit more about that later in the programme. I do detect an awful lot of people getting in their excuses for us to fail, and I want to talk about, are there too many excuses being thrown out there about quality of opposition? Shouldn't this be about us? We say that the league has improved this season. So then, if that's the case, does that mean we shouldn't be as good this season as we were last season? Take a look at where Boreham Wood are. Take a look at where Chesterfield are. Okay, same for other clubs. Take a look where Solihull, Moors are. Why are they doing better this season than last season? I think I do detect a lot of excuses being thrown out there. Trevor, you travel home and away, like me.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
It's interesting, the fans last night. Great crowd, great support. And I guess there is a lot of emotional reaction to a defeat at what is perceived now to be our main local rivals in this division. How did you view the fans' reaction once Chesterfield go 2-1, 3-1 up?
Well, I think if you look, even when they were awarded the penalty, there was a kind of mass exodus before they'd even taken it. From where I was sitting, not good at all. Very, very negative towards Ian Birchnell, towards the team, towards certain individual players. And yeah, part of that is going to be frustration because, like you say, it's a local derby. They were potentially there for the taking. We need to get, points on the board if we're going to maintain any kind of challenge. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of it was born out of frustration. But to be honest, I think the fans were making some good points. Actually, last night, we were not. We didn't put up enough of a fight, and to pick up on something that Stallard said earlier about Chesterfield having the desire. I didn't see that so much with Notts. I thought there were some players who were definitely off the boil last night. You'll get some that will put a shift in every game, and I'm not saying that they're taking it easy, but yeah, I think we seemed to be carrying a few passengers last night, and for a game like that against what are now our local rivals, you would expect a little bit better. So,
glass half full, half empty, Stel. So we know that Notts are going to play a certain way, and we know it's not really going to change a great deal between now and the end of the season. Ian has a methodology, he's a technical coach and an approach. But you've already mentioned it. It's something I've banged on a lot about this season. I'll give an example. So we've gone to a flat back four. And there was not a lot of height in our back four last night. You have a specialist centre half, 6'2", 6'3", who's been on the bench for several games now when we have played teams of a certain style, type and stature, Connell Rawlinson. So I think I was a bit worried. Sounds like you were. I remember Ian talking about when he was he had a bad first season in Norway, and he said he spoke about the director of football wanted heads on sticks. He wanted players that could play the ball out from the back. Are you surprised Connell's not getting more game time, or is the way Ian plays a purist way of football a price you have to pay for, I guess, not being great at set pieces at either end at this level?
Am I surprised Connell's not getting any game time? I think he's a little hard done to, but because of the type of defender he is, where first and foremost his forte is defending, and I'm sure he won't freely admit it, but he'll admit that maybe when you look at Richard Brinley, who's a right back, been converted to a right-sided centre half in a 3, and now a right-sided centre half in a 2. He'll say, I think we all know he's probably better and more adept at coming out with the ball, accepting the ball to feet, as you would expect of somebody who's played as a fullback majority of his career. So that's no surprise. There's two sides to that thing, isn't it? Because you want to play ball-playing players in as many positions as possible, because that helps you build up the patterns of play how you want to build them. And if you do that well, as we've seen with Notts on many occasions this season, we starve the opposition of the ball.
Yeah.
And therefore, you don't have to do so much defending, and therefore you don't need your predominantly defending or defensive-minded players to fulfil the roles at the back. If you played Connell Rawlinson and, say, there's no reason to change Kyle Cameron, is there? But say Alex Lacey, who's equally as adept with the ball, but you're then potentially losing something in terms of in possession of the ball and your options for playing out from the back. which some people will go, well, sod it, let's just get it long. Let's just play in the opposition's half. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but you've got to pick the horses for the courses, if you like. So if you are going to play passing out from the back, as we do play, and, I would say, 90% of the time we are very pleasing on the eye. We are good to watch. It's football in the way that you would like to watch football being played. The problem comes in the 10% of the time when it's not working. And then we suddenly go, that's not how we want to do it. Let's get two big centre halves in and let's play in the opposition's half. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But you've got to have everything aligned so that everybody knows what we're doing. So, for instance, if Richard Brinley and Kyle Cameron are out injured or not available, then you go with a Conor Rawlinson and somebody else, then maybe you have to tweak how you play. It's not just as simple as here's what we play. You always have to slightly tweak it. You've always got an idea of how you want to play. But I say on different games, other teams, how they set up dictates how you should approach a game and how you adapt in game. Chesterfield last night were energetic, trying to get high in not spaces, not allowing them to build up freely from the back. And the pitch didn't help, but I'm not using that as an excuse because you have to adapt to that as well. If you see the pitch isn't great, then don't roll too many balls along the edge of your own penalty area. It's not anything other than common sense, is that? So it's very difficult. Conor Rawlinson, I think, is not the first choice sort of centre half that Ian Birchnell likes to play.
Yeah,
I think he's got more chance of playing in a 3, but I don't really see where he plays in that 3. I think he'll play as the central one of a 3 if he is going to play. But he's preferred Alex Lacey, up to a few games ago when he was playing. So it's difficult. It's difficult because I don't think Conor Rawlinson's done a great deal wrong. He's sort of a victim of circumstances. And also, let's also not forget, as disappointing as last night's performance and result was, we're not talking about a Notts team that is without a win in the last 10 games. They were sort of 4 unbeaten in the league up until last night. So it's only now after a poor performance and a bad loss, terrible loss, really, against local rivals who fans are giving it large in your face, that now do we change everything? Again, it's not baby out with the bathwater time, but for me, it's them balls into the box, the crossing, the set pieces, the lack of aerial dominance in our own penalty area. That does need addressing. And if you address that with a Conor Rawlinson and stay as a back 4, or do you go to a back to a back 3 where you can accommodate an extra centre half in there to give you a bit of extra aerial prowess and then alter the shape of the team ahead of them? It's how you see it and how you manufacture getting that extra body in there, that extra defensive body, if you like, in there in terms of aerial defensiveness.
Trevor, let's get your thoughts. Where do you think we are? So, identical points tally from identical number of games. And we ended up, forget where it was last year. We got the playoffs.
5th. I think 5th, was it?
We beat Chesterfield.
Yeah.
Went down at Torquay. As it stands, do you feel more confident this year or more apprehensive about getting out of this division?
Well, I think we can safely say automatic promotion has gone. Although, to be fair, I thought that some time ago. When you look at the number of teams that are doing very well, and obviously it's very tight up there, and whilst the likes of Stockport may go on a bad run, you actually need several other teams to also simultaneously go on a bad run whilst not pick up a load of points. So automatic has gone. I think the playoffs is an absolute minimum of where we need to be. And whilst I would accept that it is a more competitive league when you look at, how much some of the teams in there have spent, The flip side of that is you look at the likes of Boreham Wood, Halifax, Solihull Moors, Bromley. They don't have anything like the resources that we've got. And whilst I would expect us to get in the playoffs, the issue there is that it's a bit of a lottery. I think we would actually perversely find it a little bit easier if we got out of this league. I think we'd find League Two a little bit easier, particularly if we wanted to, continue through the divisions because of the extra automatic spots. So I am, I looked at, how other teams have been doing and kind of what the likely points totals and things like that are going to be. I think if you set your stall out to get 2 points per game, finish the season with 88 points, if it didn't get you automatically promoted, you'd be there or thereabouts. I suspect this season it'll take more than that. Nowhere near that. They would need to win something like 12 out of the last 15 games. And I'll give you a little stat in a minute that you may or may not be aware of. But even looking at where the other teams are, because it's so tight there, based on the kind of points per game that teams in the top 7 or 8 are on at the moment, it actually looks as though you might need as many as 80 points to even get into the playoffs. So Bromley have got a game in hand over us. If they win that, we actually drop out of the playoffs. The games in hand we do have over certain teams, even if we win those, we can't catch them. Grimsby are only 3 points behind us, having played the same number of games. So whilst I would expect us to get in the playoffs, and to be fair, we've got the last, I think, 7 or 8 games of the season are all pretty winnable. You would expect Notts to have a good run at the end. As I say, if you get in the playoffs, it's a lottery. It's a lottery. And in terms of the little stat I was going to give you, and you might know the answer to this, how many times this season, I'm just talking about the league, so not including the cup games, how many times this season have we won more than 2 league games on the trot? And the answer is once. We had a run of 4 wins earlier in the season. But that was a one-off, and we've only ever won 2 league games on the trot. We haven't won any more than that at any given time. So, if we're looking to go on a 6 or 8 game winning streak, we'll have to do something we've not even come close to doing this season.
The most I'm right in thinking, Trevor, is 4 straight wins.
It is 4 straight wins. We've done that once, and then our next best run is 2. Well,
Stell, $64,000 question. Have we improved from last year for you? Are we a better team now? Are we a more effective team? Whatever adjective you want to use to describe it. Are we better than last year? Because we're the same, aren't we?
More effective? Yeah. If whichever way you're going, if you think we're not as good as last year, if you think we're better than last year, I would say the difference is minimal, absolutely minimal. Where I think we have improved, I think the style of football and the type of football we play has improved. Do I think defensively we've improved? No, I don't. Are we more effective? No, the league table tells you that we're not. So I think we're very similar, truth be told. If you take everything as a 360-degree view of everything, I think we're very, very similar. Have we improved? We've improved in 1 or 2 areas. I think we've got weaker in 1 or 2 areas, but I don't think there's been a massive... You couldn't argue, really, there's been a massive upsurge in anything particularly. And conversely, you would say we haven't declined in any area. What I would take on board is I think that with the money that's been spent by a few clubs in this division, I think the strength has got broader There's more strong teams in the division. I don't necessarily see as the top standard has massively improved, but I see there's more teams genuinely competing for the very top position. Whereas maybe in the last 3 years, while we've been down here, you could say it's between one or two teams. There's one or two teams fighting it out. Now I see that there's 3 or 4 contenders. And truth be told, that 3 of the 4 contenders are the 3 that spent money. Up until last night, it's no coincidence, and as of tonight, the 3 that have spent money are the top 3 teams in the table. So money doesn't guarantee you anything, but at this level, you're generally buying a stronger pool of quality players. And it might not hit the ground running every week. It might take a bit of time. But over the course of the league season that we've had so far, the strength has risen to the top. Boreham Wood are the massive, I say massive, are the exception to that in terms of they haven't spent massive money. But as you know, Paul, they've got a bigger budget than anybody sort of gives them any credit for, because they only get small gates. But they have got a decent sized budget. Don't make any mistake about that. And they will play the paupers role brilliantly, because why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
But they've got a reasonable budget. So they've got, and they had a decent squad anyway. They were up there. But again, as I've spoken about before, they've lost Tyrone Marsh and they've lost Shimanga in the last 2 years. And they've maintained where they are at the very minimum. And this season, okay, with games in hand, and that doesn't mean points in the bag, but they've got a genuine chance of the top spot. I don't expect them to finish up there, but they've given themselves a great chance. They're ahead of Notts and quite a bit clear of Notts at this moment in time. So we can't be sniffy about teams like Boreham Wood. Halifax the same. So, and Solihull, So I think there's broader strength at the top this year. I'm still confident we get in the playoffs. I agree predominantly with whoever the guy was that commented about if we finish 6th or 7th, that puts us up against it, because we'd have to win 3 away games on the spin, which, as Trevor said about, we've only won 4 games on the spin all season in the league, once. So it would be a big ask. I think it's important we finish in that top 5, and preferably, obviously, the 2nd or 3rd. But I do agree. I think Automatic went after the Grimsby defeat, but I think Automatic is a step too far.
We've mentioned money a few times, Trevor. We talk a lot about investment spending, call it what you will, Wrexham, Stockport, and clearly they've splashed decent money at this level. But let's not forget, our owners have spent roughly, according to the figures that were issued earlier this season, roughly, it's been COVID, they had to buy the club, and depending who you listen to, the purchase price of the club was somewhere between £2 and £4 million, tidying up the debt and all the rest of it. They burned £9 million. So it does surprise me a little bit when some of our fans kind of present us as paupers, right? I'm not going to go into player wages, they're confidential. We pay proper money at this level. Yeah, we have a decent squad. We pay proper money. We have high quality facilities, and the owners have not scrimped. So whenever the team needs to go overnight, all of those sorts of things, travel during the day, bed down in the afternoon, those sorts of things, the club is funded in the National League as a Football League club. So 9 million, Trevor. Do you think the owners have got a realistic bang for their buck so far? 3rd season into the National League, and we are 7th.
Well, I think if you look at the squad, I actually think of the 3 seasons we've been in the National League, it's the strongest squad we've got. I cannot fault the owners for that. I think, we have good players in all areas of the pitch. Some will obviously dip in and out of form and, have to get used to new ideas and things like that. But I've got no issue with the recruitment policy whatsoever. I I don't really see too many weak links in terms of the playing squad. And I don't necessarily think you've got a first 11 and then kind of fringe players, because as we've seen, any of those fringe players can come in. And if you look at the likes of Eli Sam, prime example, couldn't buy a game. Now all of a sudden he's on fire. So I don't think the owners could really have done any more than they have done. And, they've certainly not been in a rush to, let's say, sell the best players either. So if offers have come in for certain players, as has been rumoured before, they've not been in any kind of rush to sell them and cash in or anything like that. So I cannot really fault, the squad that they've put together. Have they had a fair return on that? I would say not at the moment. Obviously, the time to judge will be at the end of the season, because who knows, we may come into a late run of form and getting through the playoffs, and if we do that, everyone will be happy. But I think as it stands at the moment, they're not really seeing value for what they've showed out.
Stell, where are you? If you were the owner, if it cost you, and we're basing this on the figures that they've put out, so roughly you're in for 9 million. Okay, 9 million out your personal fortune. You're a financial advisor when you're not commentating on Radio Nottingham, so I trust you can appreciate the value of 9 million quid. And you've been in pro football a long time. Is it a fair return or not at the minute?
Well, no, of course it's not at the minute, because we haven't achieved anything. We're no higher than when they came in. But the message always was, this is a long-term project. They're both young guys, Chris and Alex. They've come in. I think they've done well. They've basically fit almost the role model of the ideal owners of football club, in that they've put their money up. If you're saying to the tune of 9 million, if we're using that as a figure, they backed the club to the tune of 9 million, which in the National League is a hell of a lot of money. In any league, it's a hell of a lot of money, but it's a hell of a lot of money. They've had very little publicity themselves out of it. It's not been an ego trip for them. As Trevor rightly says, they've not sold assets. They've not looked to cash in on anything. We aren't talking about a sale of Meadow Lane for housing or anything ridiculous like that. So, in terms of ownership, I've got nothing but praise for them. Nothing but praise in terms of that. How many owners of football clubs do we know want to be outspoken, want to be, I'm a successful businessman, so therefore my ego needs a massage. I need my name singing, and that for me, the cynic on the outside always says that I'm suspicious of people getting involved with football clubs, because generally they're all successful businessmen before you can get involved with a football club and buy it. But what you don't get, money brings it you. But what it doesn't bring you is 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 singing your name and thinking you're a hero. And that's the bit that they chase with a football club, that business success won't ever get you. And as we all know, from financial head or not, it's not a great financial decision to purchase and plough money into a football club. So from an ownership perspective, I think that you cannot fault them. I don't think you can fault them at all with what they've done. The problem with football and with any sport and anything like this is there is no guarantee of success for however much money you plough into it. There's only increased probability. I say we talk about the three teams that have spent money or the top three, but there is still no guarantee. And there is one absolute certainty, that a minimum of one of them teams is not going to get promoted. A minimum of one of them teams is still going to be in the National League next season. Could be two, could even be three. But, there is no guarantee. So have they had a return on it? No, at this moment in time, of course they haven't. But they did come into it talking about long-term. They're young people, and hopefully they don't get frustrated and lose faith with the process and lose faith with it all. And thankfully, they're not Russian, so they're not having that approach.
Yes. Right, okay. Trevor, the one, as a fan, the one nagging doubt that keeps gnawing away at me, I echo everything that Stallard said there regards the owners, the way in which the club is being operated and run. But fundamentally, we hear a lot about stats, we hear a lot about data. Are we ruthless enough? Are we nasty enough? You spoke about recruitment. Many people on this show would say, is the balance right in midfield? Lovely players. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but we haven't got the dirty, rough, scruffy stuff breaking things up. Our coaching staff, I think, would approach it, and I'm cutting this to the quick a little bit, heads on sticks as centre halves. I guarantee, I know what Stockport centre halves will look like. We knew what Chesterfield centre halves will look like. That is a formula that they're using. We're very technical. We're pursuing, what is quite a high risk approach in the terms of delivering promotion. Do you think we've got the blend and the balance right, and something that is capable, irrespective of whether it's Notts County or anybody, playing this way to get promoted? And everyone knows my view. And for you, is it the be all and end all to get promotion?
For me, as a Notts fan, and you'll know this, Paul, of kind of 50 years or whatever, then yeah, this season I would have taken a scrappy 1-0 win every day of the week. Don't get me wrong, the football is, I think, the most attractive we've played in many a year. I cannot fault that at all. I love the way we play, but I would currently trade that every day of the week for a win, because I think this will be the hardest league for us to get out of. And I think, if we, I think playing the way we do, we'd perhaps perversely have more success in League Two, and we could actually even be a decent League One side. But I think Stall made a really good point on the radio a few weeks ago, and it was along the lines of the teams at the top find a way of winning. When things are going against them, they seem to find a way to win. They'll grind out a 1-0 win. Stockport have had a few 1-0 wins. It doesn't matter. It's 3 points. So yeah, are we ruthless enough? No, I don't think we are. And I don't know if that's down to the players and the style that we play. I've no doubt that Ian Birchnell is an excellent young coach. He seems very progressive, very modern thinking. But I don't know how much he gets into the players' minds. I don't know how he necessarily motivates them, or maybe gives them a jilp or a bit of a kick up the backside if they need it, or whatever. Possibly that's what we're missing. I don't know. It's. I think sometimes we need to win dirty, and you're talking earlier about Conor Rawlinson not being the type of player that Ian Birchnell would necessarily want as his first choice centre back. The Conor Rawlinsons, if you look back to last season, the Mark Ellisers, I I think any side, no matter how you play, you can be a really attractive side. If you go back to the old Arsenal sides when Wenger, the likes of Patrick Vieira, case in point, great player, but he would get stuck in and, he would mix it with the best of them. And actually, I made a point to somebody today on Facebook that in some respects, we're almost like the kind of the later years of Arsene Wenger's Arsenal, whereby they were playing attractive football. Yeah, they would turn most teams over because they couldn't live with us. But teams that got in their faces or whatever, or tried to mix it with them, they would crumble. And I see some of that with us. And I don't know if that stems from the players or whether it stems from the coach.
Is it too simplistic, Stel? Because, Trev managed about 2 games for County Bullets that I ran in about 1984. I think I was ever present for about 9 years, not Sunday morning senior Division 1, never got relegated. But that's the limit of our football, right? You're the ex-pro. Is it too simplistic to say we're not ruthless enough, we've not got a killer touch? Is mentality overrated? What's your take on kind of what is a debate that started earlier this season, and I suspect it's going to become a louder debate as the season progresses?
It's simplistic, yes, but it's like I say, sometimes we do overcomplicate things. And also the other, it's not just one thing. You can't just say, well, there's one reason why Notts on running away with this division, and that is because we're not ruthless, or we're too nice, or we ain't got the right mentality, or this is wrong, or that's wrong. There's no one reason. There's a lot of things that go in the melting pot to get a football club and a football team to where we are. A lot of things go into it. What was the reason last night against Chesterfield may not have been the reason we drew early on in the season against Torquay, or the reason that we won 3 out of 4 games prior to that in the league. Things were okay in that aspect. It's the wonderful inconsistencies at this level that you get with players is part and parcel of it. But I think if you want to put it in, if you want to not overcomplicate things, I think there is an element. I've said it many times on the radio. I don't think we're ruthless enough on the pitch.
Yeah.
On the pitch, I don't think we're ruthless enough, and that goes both ends of the pitch, all over the pitch at times. And I'm not saying we are, rubbish. We're easy to play against. I'm not. We're not talking like everything's wrong with the world, despite the result last night. It's percentages, the 1% and 2% that win or lose your football matches. We are not a million miles away, but at times, you look back at the last games in the league. We lost to Chesterfield last night pretty poorly, really, after being ahead. We beat Woking on Saturday without breaking a sweat, really. We drew with Halifax when we should have battered them. We beat Eastleigh comfortably at home. There is an element there. If you go, are we flat track bullies? Do we beat the teams we should beat? And then when we come up against better opposition, we don't. Is that a lack of ruthlessness? But then you rewind 2 or 3 months, you go, well, we beat Stockport at home. Granted, that was not a Stockport that on the run.
Did them a favour, didn't it? They got rid of the manager after that.
Exactly. We beat Grimsby away in that game that was forgettable, but a great result when Grimsby were flying. So I wouldn't say we're flat track bullies either, but you could equate that over the last few games. I just think over 44 games as this season's going to be, I think there's unfortunately too many occasions, and as Trevor mentioned, I agree with him that the automatic spot is, although it's mathematically possible, there's too many things that don't line up that we're going to get it. So I think that's out of the way. But I think we have let ourselves down too many times in individual games this season through that lack of ruthlessness. the Halifax game a couple of games ago was probably as big and as clear example of not being ruthless in a game as you could possibly have, against 10 men, dominating, having chances, and not being able to tuck one of them away. Granted, if that was a one-off, you'd go, well, that can happen in any game, but it's happened too many times, unfortunately, this season, where we haven't put teams to the sword. I remember Ian Birchnell mentioned about Torquay early on in the season, second game of the season, where we drew 1-1, and again they were down to 10 men, and we didn't create too much in that, but that is a form of ruthlessness. Is when you're against 10 men, is right. Don't let them off the hook. And I know it's still difficult against 10 men. It's not a given, but go and put them to the sword. When you're all over teams, when you're dominating possession, go and kill them off. Go and put them to the sword. The fact of the matter for me is not as good or not as best is brilliant. It's brilliant. But I don't think when we're not at our best, is it good enough? And I'm talking good enough for the very, very top end of the league. And I don't think it is. It's pleasing on the eye. I get all that. But the ruthlessness. And Ian Birchnell, his post-match, used two very good words last night about, Notts. We weren't brave in possession. And that's not brave as in sticking your head in and going into tackles. It's getting on the ball when the crowd's up, the atmosphere's up, the pitch is a bit bobbly, the opposition are getting about you, getting stuck into you a little bit. You've still got to get on the ball and show a bit of quality and a bit of touch and ability and vision and all the sort of stuff that you're a good player. Go and show it. That's the time you show it for 90 minutes. And aggressiveness. And he said Chesterfield had it for their headed goals. They went and attacked the ball with aggressiveness. It's not about fighting. It's not about elbows and kicking and all that. It's about attacking the ball, wanting to be aggressive and score a bloody goal and win the game for your team, to put the opposition to the sword again and come out a winner as opposed to being beaten. And it's that over multiple games in a season. How many times do you slip up? Do you just let yourself down? Every team does it. Stockport have lost games, but they've won 2/3 of their games. They've won 2/3. So 2/3 of the time, they are ruthless. They win. They get the job done. So far this season, Notts are falling behind that. For all the good football, for all the attractive stuff, for all the wonderful goals and the individual bits of play that we've got, we aren't that absolute killer sort of instinct, if you like, at both ends of the pitch too often, and it's costing us. That's why we are 7th as opposed to, say, maybe 1st, 2nd or 3rd.
Thoughts, Trevor?
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything Stallard says there. Got it absolutely spot on. Yeah.
What would you like to see happen? Stell's used the phrase flat track bullies. We're knocking plenty of teams over, but as we've said before on shows, it's a very, very high bar that we as Notts County in the National League are expected to hit. Yeah, expected to hit. I think you kind of alluded to an absolute base level of playoffs this season. What if anything would you like to see between now and the end of the season?
I think the players have just got to have that belief. We seem to, there's been a few times this season we've gone a goal up, and we almost seem to panic if we go a goal up because we're expecting teams to come at us or whatever. And as I say, if teams get in our faces, we maybe look a little bit flaky at times. I think whether it's a confidence thing, whether it's belief that actually, because on the day, let's be honest, if you look at the teams up at the top, we've played Wrexham twice, taken 4 points from them there. We've beaten Stockport. We battered Halifax. down here. Admittedly, we didn't get the result. Got creditable points away at Bournemouth and looked, good value for that. So, we're certainly capable of beating the teams who are at the top of that division, and perhaps we should have, in some respects, maybe we should have gone on and won the game last night, having gone a goal ahead. So yeah, I don't know whether it's a confidence thing, whether it's a belief thing, but I think for me that's what we need. I think the players have to believe that we can beat anyone we come up against. And if we can't beat them in the way that we want to play, we have to find a way of grinding out a result another way. And if that means we win dirty or whatever, then so be it.
Here's a couple of stats for you. Is what I'd like to see in terms of end products, Del. You can tell me how we achieve it or if it's achievable. We have kept, in our opening 29 league games, 8 clean sheets, which for me is nowhere near where it needs to be. If you're going tops, in the last 15 games, I'd like to see us get another 8 clean sheets. Yeah,
absolutely.
And here's another one. We've often asked on this show, forget cup games, last minute winning goals, because all teams in the top end get them and nick them. Chesterfield has done us at the end last night. If we'd held out, point, everyone's happy. Everyone's happy, really, in the scheme of things. I think we've got one. We've got one at Grimsby. I think it might be 2 last-minute winners this season. I'd like to see us in the last 15 games get 3 or 4 last-minute winners. And irrespective of how you play and set the team up, I think if you are returning those sorts of things, I think we'll get a lot of points. We speak a lot about our approach and the way we play the game, but I'm so much more about end product. So much more about end product. And I think you've said before, the easiest part of the pitch to play in is the middle third. The hard part is the last 2. Is the front end and the back end. I mean, what do you think? Do you, as a striker, you're always looking to score more, aren't you? Do you think we leak too many goals?
Yes. Simple answer is we are joint highest. Conceded joint highest out of the top 7 clubs.
That's right. We've got the worst defensive record. I think it's defensively top 9.
Yeah. Defensively, we've conceded too many goals. And we're not the high scorers either. So conversely, I'd like us to score more goals as well. And I don't see as the scoring more goals isn't out of alignment with A, the amount of possession that we have throughout the season, B, the amount of quality ball we have in and around the opposition's penalty area, C, the number of chances that we create, and D, the individual ability we've got from our attacking players. I don't think it's, they've all done reasonably well. They've all done pretty well. But I don't see why it isn't feasible that they should all have 3 or 4 more goals each. Do you know, if you're talking about a perfect scenario, given we want 8 clean sheets out of the last 15 and we want last-minute winners as well, I go, Kyle Wootton, Ruben, Cal could all have had 3 or 4 more goals this season with the amount of ball we have, with the amount of chances we have, the quality that they've got. Eli Sam hasn't played that many games. He's done brilliant and come in and taken his chances. So, the quality is there. But also at the same time, you're absolutely right. At the other end of the pitch, why have we not got 5 more clean sheets this season? Minimum 5 more clean sheets than we have. It's not like we literally can't defend. And the best form of defence is obviously having the ball. Having the ball means the other team ain't scoring against you. But the problem comes is if you do that, and I haven't got them, I don't know what they are, the possession stats for the whole season, every game Notts have played, Notts will have had, somewhere in the region of 60% of possession, which means in the 40% we haven't got possession, we've still conceded them 33 goals, which is worse than anyone else. Equal with Solihull, is it? Who else has scored that conceded 33? Sorry, no, Bromley have conceded 33 or 8. In that 40% we haven't got the ball, we're conceding too high a percentage of goals. So, they've got to be better to be right up there, at both ends. And it is, it's both penalty areas. That's where it is. But hey, me as an ex-striker, I always look at the striking end of the pitch. Of course, I do first and foremost, and I see what quality we've got there, and I see how we play. Have we really got them rewards that we maybe should have done? And again, to link it back to the owners, boy, you talk about the owners put a manager in place. They wanted to play attacking, expressive, expansive football that was pleasing on the eye. Because why wouldn't you? Because that, in theory, should attract people to come and watch the team. And that is what we've got. So, that's a feather in the cap for them. Now, what you've got to add to that is it's got to be attacking and express and all that sort of thing. But it's got to win. It's got to win. And that's the bottom line. As Trevor says, we'll take a few scruffy, scabby 1-0 wins between now and the end of the season. Forget last-minute winners. As long as we have winners, I don't mind. 15 of them, please.
I was smiling halfway through, and one of your old teammates, I don't know whether you've got the chat.
Jamie Forrester, by any chance?
Jamie Forrester, former teammate. It's a good one, this.
I've seen him today.
He says, I met up with Stell on Monday, and he was wearing that same jumper. This is washing machine broke. How's the washing machine, Stell? Or does the good lady do it all for you?
He's forgetting Stell buys his clothes in bulk. He's got half a dozen of those. It's not the same one.
Exactly. I also buy men's size clothes, whereas Jamie's in small boys. So
it's like when you
go boss jumpers by the box, do you, Stell?
Oh yeah, you know me.
Yeah. And you get a good deal at that MacArthur Glen place just off the motorway. Got a Hugo Boss store. It's where I go. I can't afford it from anything other than the outlet now.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right.
Glad to see Jamie's. Glad to see Jamie's on the ball. Was he with you? Was he at Lincoln with you?
Yeah, I played at Lincoln with him. Yeah, had a couple of seasons there, a couple of good seasons as well. Yeah, his banter's not improved though.
He may beg to disagree. Okay, we're coming up to an hour now. Yeovil Saturday, Trevor. Home form has been very, very good. One of the best in the league. How do you view Yeovil? They only got beat 1-0, didn't they, by Stockport? Was it? I think recently.
Yeah, they did. I've been looking actually. Their last 6 games, they haven't won any. So they've drawn 4, lost 2. Only scored 3 goals in that time, one of which was a pen. So they've only scored 2 in 6 remote play, but they don't concede many, conceded 5. And they've not been beaten by more than an odd goal. So I can't see many goals there, if that's anything to go by. And if Notts are ever going to get a clean sheet, then Saturday is the time to do it, because clearly they're not hitting the back of the net with any kind of regularity. So but it might actually turn out to be one of those games where you win 1-0 and you're grateful for it. So,
well, I think we'd all take the 3 points in whatever form.
Definitely.
Another debate that seems to be gathering a bit of momentum still: set pieces. Yeah, defending them and scoring from them. And I guess it gets brought into sharper focus because Notts at the start of the season advertised for a relatively unusual position in the lower divisions of English football. I can't remember whether they entitled it a restart coach, but it was specifically mentioned about set piece, etc., and specific responsibilities for that. So we have a dedicated coach for that. Some managers attach tremendous importance to set pieces, don't they? You know, it's almost like they work to get a corner. They've got a certain set piece delivery and so on and so on and so on. I think Ian comes across as being more expansive in his approach to the game. What's your take on our effectiveness, shall we say, from set piece?
I don't know the stats on it, but I would say we don't look particularly effective from them. I think we've got a good rate attacking wise. I think we've got variation, but the bottom line, whether you have a defensive, a set piece coach, restart coach, whatever you want, the bottom line, and I say this about a lot of things in football, comes down. You've got to have quality delivery, and you've got to have that desire to go and lose your marker and get your head on a ball or get your finish on a ball, you know, and defensively, you've got to have that same desire to want to go and head the ball and get first contact, as I say, on that ball coming in. Set piece coaches, all they can do is run through little patterns to put you in positions, right? Here's your movement. Here's how you try and lose your marker. They can show you the runs. They can show you the timings of the runs based on the signals of what you want to do, where you want to go near post, far post, or they can show you the runs. They can show you the patterns and give you a selection of them. But if the delivery's not right, then it doesn't mean a thing. If your timing of your runs or the desire of the run isn't right, and your teammates or whatever, if it's not done with quality, then you're negating the work of a coach. Just like from open play, if a coach can set you up to, stand here, do it, pass from A to B, you move here, it shows everybody what to do. But if the quality of the passing isn't up to it, it all falls down. So again, I don't see anything wrong with having a set piece coach, because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you have somebody to specialize on it? But of course, then you automatically want to see vast, fantastic results of it. Otherwise, you go, it's not effective. What's the point? But again, me, the ex-player, likes to throw it back to the players and say, why aren't we scoring more from set pieces? And certainly, why do we look so vulnerable from set pieces? That's the bigger concern for me, the vulnerability from set pieces. Is it because we're not big enough? I don't think that's real. I think we've got enough size in there. Is it because we haven't got a desire to go and win that first contact, win that header? Are we a little bit nice? That I think can stand up a little bit more to scrutiny. And what you do about that, again, you're looking for players to dig down within themselves and go, hey, that's part of your skill set. You're not just in there to stand and fill a space. That's what I used to do. That's what you stand and fill a space, but in reality, if the ball comes in your space, you're expected to go and win it. You're not just, I was stood in the right place, but you see it quite a bit. It's always happened. Players going at half time or full time. Sorry, lads, my marker, my man, I lost him. But if it happens time and again, then you'd soon be out of the team. It's not enough to just fill a space. You've got to go and talk about winning your battles, but every set piece is a battle. You've got a duel against somebody you're picking up, or an area if you're zonal marking, to go and head that ball if it comes into your area. That's your individual battle. You have to win your battle. And I think we are, we look vulnerable, whether it's from set pieces or crosses from open play. That's something that I think everybody watching Notts can see, that is our vulnerability, a massive vulnerability.
And I guess it's kind of the trade-off that you mentioned earlier, Stel, because you could certainly have more height in Notts' back four or back five.
Yeah.
But that would come at a price, potentially, of reducing your ability to play the ball on the deck out from defence. And there is a trade-off, isn't it? There is a trade-off. Because you would like to think that from set pieces, if Connor Rawlinson is in the team, you should be better at defending them. Agreed?
Agreed. Now, whether the stats have backed that up, because let's be honest, Connell's been here 2 years, and it's not. Let's not just use Connell as the head on a stick defender, as opposed, he can't kick the ball, can't pass the ball, he just heads the ball. It's not about that. It's not as black and white as that. But there are defences with good size in them that still are not that good at defending aerially.
Yeah,
that can happen. Just by being 6'4" doesn't mean you're good in the air. Conversely, some of the best defenders we've seen on the planet have not been the biggest defenders. That Baresi was 6 foot on a good day. So it's not all about. It's that innate inner desire and drive to win your battle, to win your duel, to go and stick your head in and win the ball, and at all costs keep it out at one end and stick it in at the other. That is. So we want to talk about simplifying football. That is what it's all about. All the hurly-burly that goes on on the centre circle in the middle of the pitch, that's the patterns of play that we play to get the ball to the final third. Then have we got the quality and the desire to get in the end? Many a time, just to take it away from set pieces, but many a time we get in so many good positions in a game, and we talk about, is the quality on the delivery right? Sometimes it's not, but when the delivery is right, is the desire to really kill yourself and get on the end of it there? And again, sometimes it's not, so look, and again, these are all small facets. We're not talking about that they literally can't do this, but too often it's been our downfall. Too often them little bits have been our downfall in both penalty areas. And for me, you're looking within players to go, come on, you need to step up. You need to just step it up a couple of percent. Just step it up. How many headers can you win in your box? How many headers can you win in the opposition's box? Chesterfield last night did that. We didn't.
As a fan, Trevor, set pieces. What do you reckon?
Well, I'd certainly like to see a Mark Ellis there. But yeah, I mean, it's strange. We've got Eli. I think I'm yet to see Eli head the ball, and he's biggest player in the squad. What is he, 6'5" or something? They don't use him as any kind of target man. Kyle, they do, but I certainly think, as Stal said, when you think about the number of goals potentially that come from set pieces or that you might give away at set pieces, it's perhaps been our downfall this season. Whether that's something they address in the summer, whether they can address it beforehand, who knows? But I'm not sure at the moment that that this set piece coach, or whatever you want to call him, has brought about a noticeable, change in how many goals we're scoring or not conceding from set pieces. Something needs to change, and again, whether it's the personnel, you need people with that desire, as Stal says, to get their head on it. A couple more players like Cal Cameron wouldn't go amiss.
Okay, gentlemen, we're coming to the end of the programme. Stel, Yeovil, I mean, we would like to think, wouldn't we? We would like to think normal service will be resumed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't see why it wouldn't be. I don't see why it wouldn't. As Trevor says, they don't score many. Yes, they don't concede many, but they certainly don't score many. And I think Notts at home just, steamroller them. I think, I think they can go into that game with the belief that, yes, we've got to put the Chesterfield result right, but also the belief that this isn't a team that's going to necessarily press us high and get about us. I think they probably sit off a little bit and look to soak up and maybe hit on the break, which I think Notts have done reasonably well against teams like that at home this season. let's face it, the home record is far better than the away record. So, yeah, I think back to winning ways on Saturday. It certainly needs to be. Let's make no bones about it. It needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because depending on how you look at the table, I mean, we, like you say, the top spot is difficult. But as it stands, I mean, looking at the table now, Trevor, and I know Boreham would have got a game in hand, but as it stands, 4 or 5 points any given weekend, win one, someone loses. You are still massively in the mix. Yeah, we are massively in the mix. And if it's a glass half empty, you say, oh, well, we might miss out on the playoffs because, Grimsby will get a few points. But as it stands, there's an awful lot to play for, And for me, you can't 100% write up top spot off, but you need Stockport to suddenly feel the heat, clearly. But second and third for me is still very attainable. The players for me and the squad is good enough. We've said all season, at some point, to be in that top three, you've got to win 6, 7, 8 games on the spin. And I think you produced a couple of stats earlier. The most we've ever done is 4. So the onus is on us. But I think that is more than attainable with this group of players. And I do sometimes wish, a lot of people make all sorts of excuses for us. To me, it doesn't matter, right, that Wrexham have spent more money than us this season, right? It doesn't matter. Stockport had spent a lot more money than us, right, before we played them and battered them. Now, what they have done, they haven't suddenly spent £2 million since Challoner has gone in. Challoner has put in a different approach. He's moved a few players on, moved a few players around. But he's I know as Stell would say, he's got good players there already, but they had them before he was there. And they were terrible against us. So I think, I think you can get more out of this group of players.
Definitely.
And I think that if there are to be some potential moves in the summer, Kyle is out of contract. Notts will have a decision to make on what to do with Rodriguez as he would go into the last year of his contract. You would like to think with what we've got and 15 games to go, let's show for arguably the first time this season that we've got a squad and a group of players good enough that can go and win 7 games on the spin.
Definitely. And I suspect that might be what they need to do. And as I say, I think the last 7 or 8 games of the season are all against teams that, as it stands right now, on any given day, you would expect not to beat those sides. Obviously, we've got a trickier run before that, but again, we've shown earlier in the season that we can beat teams at the top, but we do have to put a run together, because even if you look at the table now, and as I say, just based on what those teams are doing and kind of where they are in terms of points per game, at the moment, and I wouldn't necessarily expect it to stay at this level, but at the moment, it looks like the threshold to get in the top 7 at the end of the season could be as high as 80 points. And if that's the case, Notts need 28 points from 15 games. Now,
you're scaring us all to death here, Trev, with that stat.
I'm just telling you it is. So, but then again, it's very taut there, and these teams have all got to play each other, so they're all going to take points off each other. So yeah, I would expect us to get in the playoffs. But it's not a given. I mean, if you look at Stockport could have a bit of a blip now, and you'd probably still fancy them to get that automatic spot. And yeah, I dare say one or two teams up in the top 7 or 8 at the moment will have a blip between now and the end of the season. Some may fall away, but it's still down to Notts to get the points that they need. They can't rely on other teams to do them a favour. And again, if you look at the last half dozen games, the team at the top 8 teams, the only team, funnily enough, with a worse record than Notts over the last 6 games is Chesterfield. So Notts have got to start, they've got to put a run together. It's no good winning one week and then losing the following week. They have got to put a run together. No two ways about it.
Well, we did it eventually, if you remember, Stell, although it was a bit up and down, wasn't it, when Ian first came in? Didn't win for I don't know how long. And then we did go on a very good run. I mean, keep talking about it, but you would like to think that over the course of a 44-game season, Notts could win more than 4 games consecutively with the riches that they have in their squad.
You would certainly like to think so, and that may well be needed between now and the end of the season. Certainly, if we want to go for second or third, which is, I agree with you, is very, very sort of the minimum of what we should be looking for. Even though I think, based on what we've seen so far, based on very nearly 30 games played, nothing suggests we're going to get the absolute top spot. But they should still be aiming as high as possible. Of course, they should. It's not mathematically out of the world. But second and third, there's such a massive advantage for that, yeah, we've got to go for that. Absolutely, definitely. And it will need maybe 5-6 wins on the spin. Wins on the spin, not unbeaten, wins on the spin. Now, just as we say, it's just as like Stockport could have a blip between now and the end of the season. Some of the other teams could have a blip between now and the end of the season. We've got to make sure we don't have a blip between, because unfortunately, we've had our blips. We've had blips throughout the season. Maybe not massive blips, but we've had them. And we can't afford many more in the 15 games we've got left. But also, we've got to start winning. We've got to win them games. And bottom line, you get your next chance against Yeovil on Saturday. Never an advocate for a must-win game, but it's a should-win, and the priority has to be that anything less than a win is not good enough, and it's not going to get the job done. A point on Saturday is not going to get the job done for Notts. So it's a game that they should be winning. I'm confident they will win. And then you move on to the next game. And that's how they've got to address every game between now and the end of the season. But out of 15 games, the players can only look at the next one. But us sitting here pontificating about it all, I think they need to win 9 of them. 9 out of 15 games between now and the end of the season. Minimum, to give themselves a chance of top 3. Minimum, that is. They'll probably, in reality, have to win 11 out of 15 games to get top 3.
Well, let's go for that. So 11 wins out of 15. I want 8 clean sheets, 5 last-minute winners. There we go.
We don't want much.
If all that happens, it'll be a really good end to the season, won't it? Gentlemen, thank you ever so much indeed for your time tonight. Thank you, Trevor, for joining us. Thank you, as always, for your time. It's always brilliant. We love listening to you. So everyone posted loads of messages tonight. Didn't get the chance to read as many of them out because I listened to the guys doing the punditry here. We will be back Monday, and we will be doing the draw for all of you who donated for Harry. One lucky person will win the chance to come and watch a Notts County training session. We've got a few places as part of our player sponsorship, so you will get to meet Ian, hear some inside coaching tips, and watch a training session. So we will be drawing the winner of that on Monday evening. Thank you everyone for watching, listening, and we look forward to catching up again soon. Take care. Bye for now.
Cheers.